Hey everyone, thank you so much for clicking on this video once again. Today we've got a really exciting interview in store. We're going to be interviewing Brick, who's the director of Spag Bol, and I confirmed beforehand I am saying that correctly. But Brick, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolute pleasure.
So, I have to say, this is an incredibly unique film, and I just want you to tell the viewers at home a little bit more about it. So can you just give us a brief synopsis of what this film is about?
Yeah, so Spag Bol is a dark comedy about two crime scene cleaners who have like an unlikely romance while cleaning a double homicide. So essentially, it's kind of a weird office romance, but the office is a crime scene, and instead of like sort of I don't know, like filofaxes and printers, it's just like severed body parts and loads of blood. So it's a bit of a weird sort of juxtaposition for a new romance. I kind of call it instead of a meet cute, it's more of a sort of meaty cute. So yeah, that gives you a bit of a better idea.
So what I really enjoyed about your film, I mean, like at the end of the day, it's a short film. It's about 10 minutes in length, including credits. But you were able to tackle some incredibly hectic themes. As you mentioned before, it is a dark comedy, but you tackled the themes of life, love, death. You did a great job of using that 10 minutes to basically break down the entire human experience. You've got two characters falling in love, while you had two characters in love and two characters facing death. So I just want to know what was the script writing process like? You had this unique concept, which I don't think anyone in the entire history of anything has ever thought of. Hey, let's tell a love story on a crime scene. But not only that, you tackle some incredibly deep themes. So can you just talk me through the process of, cool, I've come up with this idea, this is my inception, and actually writing the story out?
Well, I kind of like most of the things in my life, it was spawned out of failure, really. I had like sort of a music video treatment that I pitched and didn't win it. And they weren't interested in it. So I was like, oh, okay, how can I take this sort of idea of someone? I just was fascinated with like the process of cleaning up. Like essentially, it was of a story of someone getting severed into different parts, and I was like, oh, that's really fun. Still like to do something like that. So, and I always had this sort of idea of like doing a meet cute, just like trying to do it within 12 minutes, selling a sort of Hollywood meet cute, but trying to do it in the most sort of visceral and like uncomfortable way as possible. And that was the sort of motivation behind it. I was like, if I can do this in 12 minutes and have people invest in this story, like even though it's actually with a load of people who are kind of just like self-involved, they don't really share properly, they're just kind of, everyone's a bit flawed and they're all a bit selfish, but amongst it, it's just like a guy who finds comfort in cleaning up crime scenes, and then this person's dropped into his world, and he's just becomes besotted. And the whole point of just having essentially a new romance being spawned out of a double homicide, where you don't even know what's happened. Essentially, the ex-partner had killed his wife, and it was blood everywhere, and having that sort of ending of a relationship essentially like spur the start of a new one was kind of like a bit of a nice juxtaposition I was trying to go for. But yeah, I just like to just take stuff and put it in weird places. That's my sort of like my attempted USP. I take a sort of office romance, but then you just put it in a really weird place. And I think everyone's kind of had that sort of office romance thing before, where they're just besotted with someone, and essentially that's what it is. They're just besotted, and the whole world, it could be anywhere, but it's at a crime scene. So yeah.
Now, from a more, from a more videography aspect point of things, because that's actually what I do professionally. I'm a videographer, cinematographer. I noticed straight away that you changed the aspect ratio of this film. It wasn't, the stereotypical, 1920 by 1080, but it was more like the IMAX format. So was there a specific reason why you chose to go about doing that rather than the more traditional ratio?
Well, I because of the space that we had, and I knew that it was going to be confined to essentially 4 walls, the whole thing. My limitations I set was to have no more than 3 people in essentially one location, and this was for financial reason. And in my head, I was like, I'd much prefer the real estate above and below the head than the width. There's more information for me that the viewer gets from seeing much higher up and feeling that more condensed space. And equally, it was such a small space that if it was wide, you'd pick up the entire half of the room, you know. So I was just like, let's just close it off, compact it, because the information on the sides weren't important, you know. It's just the room. But you know, the fact that a lot of the stuff and the gore and everything is sprayed up into the ceiling, I just found it a lot more important for storytelling to see the height rather than the width.
So you also mentioned, of course, that this is a dark comedy. I have to say, I genuinely laughed out loud in certain sequences. You were talking about the gore on the roof. That was probably my favorite sequence, where you just have it dripping and it falls into a cup of tea.
Yeah, I set it up early, knowing that the whole time it's going to come back into play. And you know, for a lot of things with comedy, you've just got to, you know, set a lot of early seeds and then reap the sort of the harvest much later on, you know.
So I'd have to say, and actually, in fact, you just answered my question right there. I was going to say, you know, comedy is very often one of the hardest genres to direct, because sometimes comedy just doesn't land and you can try your best.
Yeah.
But you answered the question then, the fact that you were saying it's about sowing seeds. In fact, very often, like, the audience is aware that something is going to happen because you've now sown these seeds. And so when the punchline inevitably hits, the audience can react to it so much more powerfully. So you actually answered my question there straight off the bat.
Yeah.
So well done. You're by far the best interviewer or the best interviewee I've ever interviewed, answering my questions before I even asked them.
That's it. You just set it up early, and you kind of this was the first film I've directed. Like, this is the first narrative I wrote. So it was all very much, now on the back end of that, I can understand how audience react to certain things, and that was the sort of, I didn't really consider it when I first started making to how are the audience going to react now. It was more of just like, let me just see how far I can push it, you know, and see how far I can take the audience and still have them engaged, you know, with a sort of romance. Yeah.
And then finally, I just want to say, you mentioned as well that you're going to be, another one of your films is in a film festival. Is it the same film, or are you working on another one?
No, I've just done another film. I filmed it in September. So I finished Spag Bol in April this year, and this is doing the circuit now. And I'm just going into post-production for my next film, Deli Meat, which is in the same sort of, you know, visceral, meaty, food-based titles. And that one's about two inept criminals who are like burying their first body in the woods, but they only bring one spade. So it's all about like toxic masculinity and like the downfalls of that and imposter syndrome. And so it's a really funny, weird, same sort of exact same world, but just obnoxious, horrible people doing things, but me trying to make the audience like them. So that's where I get my fun, just trying to push the audience as far as I can, essentially. But so that's the next one. Hopefully next year we'll be ready for the next South African Independent Short Film Awards.
But Paul Brick, honestly, thank you so much. Just before we end this interview, I just want to know, I mean, you've mentioned your next film now, which is very, very exciting, but is there any way that the viewers of this interview can watch your stuff in regards to like behind the scenes or keeping up with you, whether that's social media, website, newsletters? Where can the viewers follow you?
Best place is like my Instagram or Twitter, or X, should I say, which is Directed by Brick. If you type in Directed by Brick, you will eventually end up at me. I don't think there's many other bricks out there apart from the ones that you know, make your home. But like, yeah, directed by Brickham will find me, and Spag Bol should be available start of next year to see online, and then Deli Meat, yeah, will be hopefully finished by summer next year. So busy year.
Well, Brick, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it, and I know that the viewers at home do. Guys, if you did enjoy this video, then please do not be afraid to like this video. Do not be afraid to comment down below and subscribe. Thank you so much.